All right, good afternoon. Thanks ever so much for inviting me here. My name's Joelle Taylor, and I'm a spoken word artist, poet, and cultural terrorist. And apart from that, I'm also a former UK slam champion, which means I took part in a big national event and won. How glamorous. That was amazing. There was about 7 people there, and they loved me, man. Back in those days, slam was an art form that nobody really understood. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's the competitive art of performance poetry, spoken word, rapping, MCing, with or without a bit of beatbox, in front of a very loud, very lively and responsive audience. These days, when you win slams, amazing things happen to you. You get TV contracts in America, or you'll get radio play, or people actually know who you are. Back in those days, people were like, great, what is it? Very soon after winning the slam, I got a call from the Poetry Society, and they asked me to think of a competition that would appeal to young people who were more disadvantaged than the regular people who took part in poetry competitions. The demographic of the person who takes part in a poetry competition is generally somebody who's very upper middle class, white, has a bit of privilege, crucially, has got culture at home. My own background, my culture was going to the pub, that kind of thing. So the people who win these kinds of poetry competitions generally have greater access to culture and things like that. My passion as an artist and as an educator is finding beauty in ugly places, looking for the rose that breaks through the concrete. So I set up this thing that was called the Rise Slam, which is a London-wide slam championship. And I invited young people from across urban London to take part. And it was kind of an open mic, really. So kids would turn up. These are the kids who really wanted to be spoken word artists or rappers or MCs with massive connection to music. And from the very first event, which was well attended, all the parents and kind of people like that came along, but from the very first event, we realised we got something completely and utterly different. Slam, like I said, was totally unknown in this country. And what happened was young people got to the stage and they opened their hearts, they opened their souls, they talked about their lives, and as a result, their lives became part of our own lives. So after that first event, it grew and grew and grew and grew. Also, what's crucial is the kind of people who were taking part. They were the kids that were at risk of exclusion at school, the kids that were failing in traditional educational settings. And then, in 2008, with the help of the BBC, we went national. We became a national project. So what I essentially do is I go into schools. I've just come today from a Tower Hamlets school. It's a very, very different school to this one. And it's a secondary school. And the kids who go there are fed from the local council estates. So they're coming from a degree of abject poverty, in a sense. And I don't just mean a kind of physical poverty, but a cultural poverty as well. So we started doing this. It's become an incredible thing. You all know what a slam is now, yeah? That was us, man. We did that. My passion, like I said, is to find this beauty and to find voices. The whole object of Slambassadors UK, my whole reason for being, is to give voices back to the silenced and the censored. So I go around and encourage young people, some of whom have absolutely no interest in poetry whatsoever, and I get them to try and speak about their lives. I work with people who've been in gangs. A lot of young gang members have come through it and left the gangs as well. You know, it wouldn't look very good if they were still in them, really, doing poetry on the streets. I'll mug you, but first of all, have you heard this? No. So we do that. This year I'm working specifically with the Gypsy Roma traveller community as well as a priority, and also we've looked after children. But it's open to everyone. Everyone in this room, between the ages of 12 and 18, can come and be a part of this and can come and find their voices. The gig is a massively important part of it. You have to write something that you're going to try and make an audience feel something about. Tell them something about your life, your identity, whether that be heritage or family or something that's happened to you, something crucial that the rest of us as humanity then becomes to grow, and we develop, we understand each other more. As Slambassadors has developed and got bigger and bigger, now you do stand a good chance of being booked for major gigs around the country if you win. Now you do stand a chance of being on TV or on the radio, and certainly of producing your own books. With the new revolution within print, it's created a revolution within spoken word as well. In fact, I've got my book here. Okay. Now, I think the best way for me to describe what this is about and how crucial this is for me to do you a poem, if that's all right. And this poem I'm going to dedicate to a number of young people, and I'm going to tell you who they are. First of all, to the young girl I've just worked with when I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said a drug dealer, because that's the only way you get money, yeah? For the girl last week who told me that she watched her mother cut her own throat and then was left by the emergency services on her own, an 11-year-old child. And for the boy who wanted to be a motivational speaker, now the only problem with that is that he hadn't ever spoken, and he wouldn't even sit with the other kids at the table. It's for every gang member who just grew up in a gang. You don't join them, there's no big initiation ritual, these are your friends, you grow up with them. For all those young people, for those that continue to challenge the way we teach the world how to be ourselves, this is your poem. It's called Last Poet Standing. I am the last poet standing on this blank stage of bruised pavements, broken with missed opportunities and well-aimed misunderstandings. They say our children are too demanding. The scent of sweat at the base of the spine, carried on wolves of wind, lures the gangs in. Even the air we breathe has chalk lines around it. Police barrier tape surrounds it. Whilst the skin of our streets is tattooed with grin and graffiti, the city's obituary cut by street artists, cultural terrorists and infantry, sprayed in blood and ink. See, our young are force-fed on vulnerability and violence. Their lullabies are the cries of police sirens and the echoes of doors slamming late under midnight moons as wide as children's eyes. She didn't come home again tonight. She never will. But that child will wait for her for the rest of his life, because these canals, these tracks, these umbilical streets, these arteries of our cities are clogged with discarded dreams and shopping trolleys. See, our kids die in school corridors, not just in illegal, intangible, immoral wars, but the simpler war between self-respect and self-esteem. Son, on these roads, it is expected that you will stumble, fumble, humble your grip on your dreams, but they are the only things we have. These delusions of equality. So stand up, speak free, exercise linguistic liberty. Shut up and speak. Because disappointment is viral, to the point where low expectation equals survival. And when there's little sense of truth, honour and justice, it is tempting to become tribal. So our thin children have dug themselves into their own fragile skin, and they hide behind sandbags, postcodes, collars and lies, and a cheap pound shop pride. And a knife. There's always a knife that reflects the hand that holds it. You see, the blade reflects the hand that holds it. So when you see your face, can you remember your name? Meanwhile, our fathers are pugilist or fetal, boxers or babies, missing in action, an Argos link in a cheap chain reaction that leaves us lost in our own living rooms. And he, well, he's just an empty chair, or an empty promise, or the hierarchy of the fist above the kiss, a shadow receding in the mist, retreating in the mist. Fear is your father forgetting your name. Well, it's getting dark. We are a long way from home, and from a distance, those drained and greying tower blocks are gravestones, and every window lit is a word upon it. Well, who's going to write our epitaphs when all the poets have gone? Who's going to write our epitaphs when all the poets have gone? Who's going to write our epitaphs when all these young poets have gone? Because we can never rest in peace, not while police stand guard outside school gates, and children have Kentucky Fried complexions, and education is dependent upon government inspection, and knowledge is privilege, while the libraries of our lives are pillaged. We can never rest in peace, not while there are children in the UK who cannot spell their own names. And they are the monsters beneath their own beds, and they're afraid of themselves and everything they wish they'd said, and the colour of ink is red, and this whole town is proof marked in blood. Not, well, there's one poet left standing. We have been worshipping false prophets for false prophets. The cult of celebrity, that cynical, cyclical celebration of hypocrisy that allows us to watch the whole outside world like it's reality TV, and our children are outside, bent-kneed, picking broken glass from their eyes. Broken glass, you see. There was never an end to slavery. We just don't define it anymore simply by ethnicity, but by economy. So can you hear the gangs howling from the plains of Peckham to the hard lands of Hackney, because they can scent you. You will see me. You will see poetry written among the broken glass and the graffiti, starring in the shattered lenses of CCTV. You will see poetry. You'll see poetry in the braille of the night sky, or the length of time a parent takes to say, goodbye, son, see you soon. In the harvest moon of children's eyes, or that girl, that beautiful girl, perched on the lip of the tower block, wings unfurled, preparing to fly. Even in the gangland's wasteland, warrior cries, because every one of those tower blocks is a book. Open it. There is hope in it. There is poetry. Thank you.